Hey, good morning to those of you out there on the West Coast. Good afternoon to those of you here on the East Coast with me. We're going to be talking about how to do business with the Department of Energy in just a couple seconds. But let me just turn off my captions here. But I want to give a quick tip for those of you showing up early and on time as a thank you. I really appreciate it when you show up early and on time. It puts the word out to LinkedIn that we're doing this training, and LinkedIn can push it out to others in the GovCon community. But my tip for you is if you're not tracking on this, start trying to pay attention to what your federal agency customers are doing on LinkedIn and on social media in general, but in LinkedIn in particular. So an example is this morning, the Army's PEO EIS program office, right? The Program Executive Office, PEO EIS, they did their whole industry day forecast live on multiple channels probably, but here on LinkedIn, which is awesome. You can engage with others. There were several hundred people watching this live. And they share the slides immediately, so you have access to the slides. But if you watch what they're talking about, you don't have to go anywhere. You don't have to travel. You don't even really have to spend a lot of time. You can multitask a little bit while you're listening. But they shared a lot in there related to what they want to see from industry. So make sure as you're working with your customers, teaming partners included, you can talk to them about this, but find out when is our agency talking to different people. You're going to conferences. Are you doing live events? It's not just these vendor outreach sessions, but things like PEO EIS in the Army, that's a program office running that thing. It's not the small business shop. And so it's awesome. You're hearing specifically from program office leaders. So make sure you're tracking on that. It's a little bit of what I'll share today from a high level of seeing on LinkedIn, but it's a tip for those showing up early and on time for me to just say thank you for doing that. So let me just make sure I lock everything down here. We're going to get rocking and rolling. So in today's training, we're going to be talking about doing business with Department of Energy. I want to give you some top tips on doing business with the Department of Energy. And so let me just get over to my slides. One of the things I like to start with when I'm teaching people about understanding the tips that I'm going to teach you throughout this training is to understand why really I'm teaching you this. And I'm trying to counter this idea of thinking that me just responding to RFPs that I see in GovWin or SAM or whatever is sales. It's not. Sometimes it's necessary. We do blind bidding is what it's called, but that's a reactive approach to selling. It's a reactive approach to growing your company. What I'm going to teach you today is a proactive approach to growing your company, and it's nothing novel. It's nothing new. I do not teach secrets. I just teach best practices, process, right? And so what I want to teach you today relates to business development, because business development and capture are the proactive sales approach to what you're trying to get done at your target agency. So the first thing you need to keep in mind when you're doing business development in particular, right? So you got business development, then you got capture, and then you got proposal management. Those are the three elements of sales. And so business development fundamentally is understanding an agency better than they understand it themselves sometimes. And so you want to do this research or homework in there, and we'll talk about that. I'm going to cover down on how do you do that. The second thing in business development is developing relationships before you need them for any particular opportunity. You're developing a relationship with that agency, with that customer, because you care enough that you want to be able to have conversations with them about their needs, about their goals, and then begin to weave in some of the dialogue about your solution or how your company can help achieve that. And then the last thing you're doing in business development is identifying opportunities. You want to be looking for slam dunk opportunities your company can do better than most other companies. You want to be able to, you want to be identifying those opportunities to get them into your pipeline and pursue them, et cetera. And so that's what I'm going to talk about in today's training. I'm going to walk you through doing business with DOE from those three perspectives: understanding a target agency, which we call research, building relationships, and identifying opportunities. When you move forward on what I'm going to teach you, you'll get a much better understanding and perhaps a much better entrance into DOE as a customer. If you don't know who I am, my name is Neil McDonald. I'm the president of the GovCon Chamber of Commerce, and I want to welcome you to my federal sales training, where I provide tips for success in the federal market. I spent 20 years in the federal market as a small business owner, and since 2018, I've been teaching people like you that government contracting is not a secret. It's just a process. When we follow a process A to Z, we're going to have repeatable, predictable results. And that's what I want for you. That's why I do this training. Here you can see on my screen, I lay out the 7-step process for federal revenue success. It begins with research, targeting, and outreach, which are the paths to those relationships I said you need to build. And once you have the relationships, you're on what I call a wheel of success, because the relationships, strategic ones, will lead to hearing about opportunities and being able to shape opportunities that you can then write winning proposals and start having sales come in that you're looking for, contract awards, right? And once you're on that wheel, you're not going to come off. That's what I want to try to get you started with today, right? I want you to start winning more DOE, and it begins with research. So we're going to be diving down that path, following these 10 steps that I'm going to teach for you. Before we get too much further, do me a favor. Let me know, are you in Department of Energy already? Are you trying to get into energy? Just let me know in DOE or want to be in DOE into the chat. When you do that, it lets me come back and just track where people are at on their journey. And I want to know where you're at on your journey. Okay, so the first step in research that I teach is you want to understand the organizational structure of the Department of Energy. Here I have a link. When I click on it, you can see that I've got an org chart, and this is my favorite place to start in any agency, whether it's at a department level or an agency or a major command in the military. I like to look at their org chart and begin to go, okay, that's my roadmap for researching and understanding this organization. So when I come in, I can begin to see how DOE begins to structure itself. I start seeing things like, if I'm in the clean energy world, I can see Office of Clean Energy over here. And I'm not going to go through each one of their elements, but what I want to lay out for you and that you should be tracking on is the organization of DOE is huge. And then each one of these elements, like let me find one to pull up that could be good. Well, I'll show you a different org chart because this org chart's even too high for me. But the idea of each one of these boxes on here is that you can go deeper and deeper. I've done this with organizations where at a low level, there might be a command or an office, a major office, and it's got 100 subordinate offices. They call them commands in the military or branches or divisions. You want to begin to understand those from an organizational level so that you can X out the ones that aren't worth pursuing because it's probably not a good fit for what you sell. And you want to circle the ones that are the ones you should be pursuing. And then you rack and stack those. So when you look at the Department of Energy, you're not trying to pursue energy now. You're pursuing this office and this office and this office within Department of Energy. And you've chosen, I want to go here first and then here and then here. But this first one is the one I really want to get into. You can do that beginning with the org chart. I'll show you another way of seeing that same organizational structure. By the way, if you want a copy of these links, if you want me to give you a copy of these links, just put links, please, into the chat, and I will get to that. Actually, I have to get to yesterday's and today's training, but I'll put those into the chat so you have access to them afterwards. But just let me know you want them in the chat. So here's an interesting thing. I've been doing this a long time. I've been doing it 20 plus years as a small business owner. But for the last 5 years, I've been teaching this, and strategic plans, number 2, is very easy for me to find. I really hone in on finding those because they tell me a lot about an agency, about the Department of Energy, for example. I can see their long-range direction, where their vision, their mission, their goals, right? What are they trying to achieve and what are they trying to accomplish and how are they measuring that? They do that with goals and objectives, KPIs, things like that, right? But I can't find any for Department of Energy. I can find subordinate ones. And so I'm going to sit there and just leave this one as I don't have it. When you look at your org chart, though, for Department of Energy and you're going further in, you will find more. So I just pulled one up as an example because I thought this one was really interesting. It ties to my expertise. I am a records manager, a certified records manager, right, in DoD space, in the government space. But here is a great example. This just came out in the last year or so. And it's the 2023 to 2026 records management plan. And when you start going through plans like this, let me just pop it out like that. When you go through plans like this, you're able to see what they're trying to do. This is awesome because this isn't a big department level strategic plan. This is specific to a specific type of work, right? So if you're a records manager, you can begin to look in here and go, wow, these are the 4 goals. How can I fit in with them? And from these, it leads into conversations you're going to have with the government, et cetera. Let me just pop this back up, go back. So that was number 2. Another way of looking at goals and objectives is to look at annual performance plans, also annual reports. So these number 2 and 3 on this slide, these are all strategic documents that can let you understand where are they trying to go, where have they been in the past fiscal year. So let's say FY 2022, 2023 will take a little bit longer to write. But right now, they should have an annual report that talks about that. But this annual performance plan also lays out what are we trying to do just in the next year. And so this one here, and again, at DOE top level, it's actually a really harder thing to find. But I did find this document, which is gold. It's gold for DOE, and it's an agency financial report. When you start digging into it, 200 pages here, you find a lot of great information. And I want to take some time just coming down here. So bear with me as I page down to a couple of key things I wanted to show. First off, as I start coming down, it's really important you just don't skip past something that is like about this strategy or about this report, because it gives you an understanding, even where does this document fit into leadership's way of thinking about how they run their organization. But it also gives you other links that are awesome. You can go follow these. This is called going down a rabbit hole, right? You follow these things and you start seeing what's going on. Here, I can decide if I want to follow these guys. Pretty much I forget about all of them except for LinkedIn. But following them on social media, maybe I can learn more about what they're sharing. For example, I just said PEO Digital, and this is down here on page whatever, but PEO EIS, I mean, from the Army, they just did their event today on LinkedIn. So I would want to be following them. As I'm coming through, I start seeing, I love table of contents, right? I'm going to read all 200 pages, but this gives me a good understanding of just how they begin to break this down. So one of the things on page 13, major laboratories and field facilities, this is what I was talking about, this ability to see it. I'll show you that in a second. But as I start coming down, I can see their program performances, how they're spending money, right? Where they see it. The table of contents is actually pretty thorough. And as you start looking, you'll see management priorities. This is a key thing. That's actually what I look for in the strategic plan. But if I wanted to, I could come in here and start looking at their management priorities. Let me just scroll up here. And you start seeing this alignment to management priorities in the middle, what the Government Affairs Office or Accountability Office, GAO, is writing about their agency looking from the outside. IG challenge areas is the OIG, the Office of Inspector General for Department of Energy, looking in saying, hey, this is where we're weak. We need to work on it. So this is them being completely candid about their situation over there. Let me just pop down a little bit more. Wanted to show you one more thing. So here is another way of just looking at their org chart. And this one is more recently updated. But as you start coming in, you're able to see the different offices, the laboratories they have, and you start seeing some of the data that's in here. One of the things that's really interesting to me is looking at their budget, right? It's typically around $30–40 billion, but there's a lot of extra spending with the infrastructure investment plan, et cetera. So you want to be able to dig into this. Obviously, I can't do it all in this training because I got a lot more to show you, but make a point of looking for this document at DOE. And again, I'll get you the links and you'll be able to dig down. That is the best one of everything I'm showing you today. I think that's the best one for anybody who wants to do business with DOE. Okay, so I'm just moving at a fire hose pace because I got 10 things I want to show you. You can go take days and days to research it further. I always like to say that if you're trying to get $1 million out of Department of Energy or $10 million or $100 million, isn't it worth a few days or even a few weeks of really, truly beginning to start digging into that agency? So let's look at number 4, 5, and 6 are going to be talking about money, right? So if the first 3 were about the organization of Department of Energy holistically, et cetera, the next 3 are going to be about spending. So the first thing I like to do is go see how did they spend money. I'm going to zoom in really quick. This is usaspending.gov. If you're not familiar with it, you can watch more training that I have. USA Spending has training, but it's a fantastic interface to the FPDS data. And the point I just want to point out by zooming in is that I'm doing a filter for last fiscal year, 23. I'm saying, show me all contracts. I don't want to see grants or anything else, just contracts. And then at energy, and I like to say, show me for small business recipients. That means the small businesses are the primes. This is an unusual thing in energy. As I scroll back out, let me just remind you, in case you don't know this, or let me let you know in case you don't know this, is Department of Energy is one of the oddest departments in the federal government. First off, their OSDBU, the Office of Small Disadvantaged Business Utilization Director, is a political appointee, where most places it's a career job. In energy, it's a political appointee. That's an interesting twist because that person is tied for 4 years to the secretary's goals and the administration, the president's goals. So they're driven really hard to try to make improvements in working with small businesses. The other thing, Department of Energy, unlike all the other agencies, for the most part, Department of Energy tends to award its contracts to these super large companies, and those large companies are tasked with contracting out to small businesses. This is why we sometimes see the Department of Energy have lower performance goals. It's because they feed it all through the large primes. It's a different way of working. They're reporting it now better, so they're showing the accuracy in there. But the Department of Energy loves small businesses. It just takes time to get in there. It's a really important department, right? But okay, so let me go through. First thing I want to show you is just making sure you're tracking on. I come in here, I'm able to see they got 3,200 contract awards last year that went to small businesses. There is a lot more activity, but even that's good. I like coming in and looking at the spending by time. So you want to explore these things, and I can come in and say, well, show me by months, and I can see this trend for how they spend. We're in December now, right? And so I can see they do a pretty decent spend at the end of the calendar year for whatever reason. And it's interesting to see, same thing goes in March 2023. When you're looking at the last month of the quarter, there's some spending increases. But for the most part, energy is pretty consistent across the board. And I would argue that even in the end of the year, they're not doing that massive of a spend compared to other organizations will spend $200 million through the year and then like $2 billion at the end of the year. So energy does a pretty good job. And what this tells me is I can expect there to be awards throughout the year. I might not win them all, right? But I can expect that there's activity and awards throughout the year, and there's not this massive rush at the end. The other thing I like to show you, two things on here. One, let's see if it shows it for us. Nah, it doesn't show us. I was hoping they'd break it down by laboratory. They don't. But you can come in here to the categories and you can look at how they're spending it by the type of product or services. And so if I go to PCS, which I love, NAICS code, which I love, in here I can begin to see what are their top spendings on, right? What are they spending on? Which NAICS codes are they spending the most on? And this is really interesting to me, right? Trying to understand this one here, to tell you the truth, I don't really know what it is, but I can just assume it has to do with all the energy cleanup that they do. And then as it starts moving forward, right, I see a good blend of here's computer stuff and then facility support. There's a good blend of NAICS codes throughout energy. And so it makes me like it. Your job is to dig further down into your keywords, into your specific NAICS. Okay, so that was number 4. Number 5, we want to look at the budget. And so here, let me scroll up to the top because I was looking at this earlier. So this is just Department of Energy's budget. I don't want to go too far into it today, but you can do this. But this is a great document to dig down and go, where are they spending money? If I just come down a couple of pages and I start looking at it, one of the things, and let me just do this, one of the things I like about their budget is the way it's broken up in a way that I can navigate and decide, well, this one relates to me. So for example, if I'm looking at, look at this one, manufacturing, engineering, and supply chain, down there on page 61, right? If I think that's my business, so here, am I in 61? Yeah, 61. So if I come down here, I see a quick breakthrough. But one of the things that is absolutely fascinating to me, and I don't know why yet, I would dig more into this if I'm going into energy in this space, but look at 2023's budget and look at 2024's budget. It's going up by 100, like massively, right? By $100 billion or whatever that is, or if that's millions. But it's going up by this massive increase. And you begin to ask yourself, why is it going up? And I can look at this basic overview here, right? And learn about in Department of Energy in this particular space. And I'm in the supply chain business. So I look at this and I go, wow, that budget's going up. Why is it going up? Well, I can dig further into that in Department of Energy's full budget, right? This is just a summary. And just coming back to this bonus one for a second, in here, you can go into their fuller documents for all of their budgets. So the one I showed you is this budget in brief, 90 pages. But the actual full budget is probably over 1,000 pages at least with all the different elements. And they break them up into these volumes. And so I can come in here and start looking at what's going on, right? If I'm in the security business side of it, cybersecurity, I can come in here and look at volume 3. So I want you to be able to look at this link as well and look at your business and go, which one do we work with? So that one that I said was supply chain manufacturing one, if I dig into this, here's 15 pages that expand upon this. And let me just bring this up, right? It expands on here and it says, hey, this is what we're trying to focus on. Facility workforce, battery, and 2 others down here, energy sector, industrial base, and program direction. I'm like, these are fascinating. Let me dig in and figure out how I can help. So these budgets are really important for you to track on, and a lot of them are in here. I mean, not a lot of them, all of them are in here. Okay, so the next one I want to show you is number 6. We're moving into the long-range forecast, and this one's an interesting one. So if you go to Department of Homeland Security, they got one tool. If you come over to energy, they got a good website, right? They do a good job of trying to communicate, but they have all these laboratories out here. And this is what I meant by contractor managed sites. And so they'll have a laboratory, you know, think about a nuclear power plant or something. They might give a large business, they call it GOCO, government owned contractor operated type thing. And the idea is that some big contractor is managing it. Those people are responsible for doing forecasts as well on behalf of DOE. And so if I come down here and I'm just looking at a particular one, I might look at Oak Ridge, for example. I remember meeting with these people and speaking at one of their events. But when you come into these forecasts, the thing I like that Energy does is you've got points of contact here that are talking about if you're trying to do business out there in Oak Ridge, here are our opportunities and here are people you can call to start getting traction out there, right? And down here is you can sign up so you're tracking on it. But the part I like is you can start coming down here. I'm working with a customer who's in fabrication and machining services. This ability to look in here and go, well, is this a fit? Is it not a fit? Obviously, you can dig down into the details to discover it. But the great thing about Energy, though, is they really do a good job of trying to communicate their opportunities separated from around the country and their different facilities. So that's number 6. Number 7, it's really important for you to track on spending. We don't need to spend a lot of time here, but the idea of if the government doesn't have funding, right there, a lapse in appropriation, and we're kind of in that world where Congress keeps threatening not to fund the government. If that happens, what do we do? And so these contingency plans are awesome. This is a different way of looking at it. This is one of their directives that are out there. The interesting thing I saw about this, and I'm not in energy, so you'd have to go a little farther, but this document is awesome because it tells me what is energy going to do themselves, their employees. But one thing, like right here, it says applicability. It does not apply to contractors. So that's fascinating to me. And it's also really eye-opening. So I need to go, and in this document, it tells you who do you go talk to. I need to go talk to the people who are managing this activity and go, well, where's the document that talks about contractors? The one that says which one of us contractors are critical or essential and which aren't. And so you're able to find it. And by the way, those are great questions to continue your sales and business development into an agency, because you just start moving through on different questions. Okay, so I'm just tracking my time. I got 7 minutes left. Number 8, there is none that there is a couple down below at unique laboratories or something, but DOE itself, I haven't been able to find any standard website for them that they, not a website. There's definitely a website, small business portal. Small business website. I've been showing you a couple of those. But what there's not is a portal. And so let me just come up here really quick. So you can come in and DOE, Department of Energy, has a really good small business office where you can learn more. They talk about doing business and they lay out the steps for success. That's where I went to check it out. Here's the small business director. He's fully committed to small business success out there and engagement. And then down here, you can start finding people. But there is no supplier portal. Make sure your DSBS profile is updated. All right, number 9. So when you're not in Department of Energy and you're looking to get into Department of Energy, here's 17 pages of small business professionals who can help you navigate. They can answer questions for you, et cetera. So you can look in here and look at facility management contractors. And so these are the people I mentioned who are managing those contracts, these large primes that are out there. But as you come down, you've got emails, phone numbers, and names. You couldn't ask for anything better. Department of Energy is really transparent on what they do. Trying to make it easy for you to reach out and talk to them. So those people are great. You can reach out. It's a great way to just keep moving your way in to the Department of Energy and into the different laboratories. But what if you're really trying to get further into the program offices, et cetera? The last place I want you to be tracking on is where you can find people on LinkedIn. So I have this search already set up where I can come into Department of Energy. And Department of Energy has a ton of employees. Let me see if I got this guy. Hold on one second. No, I don't have it open anymore. Well, I had it in here and it told me, I'm just curious really quick. It had it right there. So they got 124,000. This is real. Oh, I forgot to show you this. This was something I want to show you. So remember I said GOCO, government-owned contractor operated. This is what I mean. In 2023, there was 16,000 employees within DOE, but there's 124,000 contractors. It's massively different than any other agency because the contractors are managing or running or operating these major facilities for the Department of Energy. So it's a little reversed on there. But this, again, this was a piece of information I could get right from the strategic documents, or in this case, the financial report. All right, so let me come back to that LinkedIn one. So in here, when I'm looking at LinkedIn, if I click, I went to this LinkedIn page and I clicked in, there's 7,200 of those 16,000 are here on LinkedIn one way or another, right? And so I'm able to come in and I can do a lot of stuff. If you're not familiar with LinkedIn, get familiar with how you can start tracking. But I can start scrolling down. That might take me a little while, right? I can begin to filter it out. Like, let's say I was looking for, I don't know if I can do this on the fly, but New Mexico. If I look for New Mexico and say, show me the people who are in New Mexico. So here's 276 people who are out there in New Mexico. And I can't remember the lab because I actually don't work with DOE too closely. But this whole idea of beginning to see people, here's a security specialist, cybersecurity specialist, et cetera. There's another way that I look at it. So here I've got bonuses of COs and KOs. If you don't know this, in the DoD, we call them contracting officers with a KO because the commanding officers got the COs. But here I have a search and all I did was say, show me Department of Energy people. And I used this keyword search up on top, said contracting officers. I could have actually gone in and said, show it to me in their title, but I was just trying to do it really fast. But you can see I'm able to come in here and see 350 contracting officers. And the whole point of this is it's not hard to find people at Department of Energy to begin knocking on doors, to begin to get in and see about how you can work with them. You need to be able to identify people, and then you need to sit there and go find their information, their phone number, their email. But like this CISO here at Department of Energy, Paul Selby, right? I might look at Paul's information, find it, but maybe I can't find his phone number and his email. Well, I can, when I'm talking to one of those small business point of contacts on number 9, I can ask them, I'm trying to get hold of Paul. He's the CISO, whatever. Would you make an introduction? Could you give me a name or phone number and email? Something like that. But at least I have his title and his name now. I didn't have that before. And so you want to use what you see on LinkedIn to begin to understand who are the people within your target agency, so Department of Energy in particular. Here's what I want you to remember from today's training. It's really important to remember that buyers don't care what you know until they know that you care. They want to know that you care about their mission, their goals, their objectives. Literally, if you've been here the whole training, I talked about the Army this morning, and they were doing PEO EIS, did a industry brief. And in the live session, he was talking about, here's my strategic documents. Go look at them so that you understand our bigger picture when you're responding to RFPs. It literally is exactly what I say. It's why I say I don't teach secrets. I just teach the process. You know, these are industry best practices. Understand your customer, then respond to a proposal. And when you understand the customer, you're demonstrating that you care and you're getting past that initial barrier of talking to you, of somebody not caring about what you know until they know that you care. Now I want to hear what you're saying. And that all begins with research, right? It's everything I've been showing you today. So when you do your research into an organization, look at those documents, really begin to dive into those documents, it'll be obvious that you care. And then Department of Energy will want to hear how you can help them, what you sell. And the last thing I want you to remember is that success comes from having strategic relationships. I gave you a lot of good initial tips on how to find people, how to begin to reach out and pursue them, how to be prepared when you're reaching out. Make sure you understand that you want to build these strategic relationships. Those will lead to opportunities and sales success. If you want my help and my team's help getting into Department of Energy or into any other federal agency, we have a BD Accelerator workshop that we're signing up for 2024. If that's something you're interested in learning more about, we'd love to talk to you about it. Just go to govconchamber.com and you can learn more there. For all of us, remember, government contracting, it's not a secret. It's a process. I'll see you in the next training.